Hey y'all. Today's lesson is surface area of cylinders. We've recently gone over surface area of prisms. Surface area of cylinders is very similar. Again, there's two methods to find the surface area of cylinders. You can either use the net and find the different parts and add them together, or you can use the formula. Over here, I've given a little circle review. It's important for you to remember the formulas for circles. Now, the circumference is the outside of the circle, and that is 2 times pi times r, and r stands for radius. The area means the area of the shaded region, the inside of the circle, and that is pi r squared. So you definitely want to know the difference between these two formulas, and you'll have to end up memorizing them, but the circumference is kind of like the perimeter, the outside of the circle. The area is the inside of the circle. The formula is the same, 2b plus pH, and then we have our lateral area is the pH, just like before with prisms. Now, in our cylinder, the bases are the circles. So you see I have a base on top and a base on bottom, and that's where we're going to use pi r squared for the base. And here is my lateral area, and it's the height of the prism right here around the middle. So we have my bases, and then we have our lateral area in the middle. Let's get started with some examples. Example 1, find the surface area. In this cylinder, we have a radius of 4 centimeters and a height of 10.7 centimeters in this cylinder. I also didn't say this, but we're probably going to use 3.4 for pi unless you just use pi, and I'm going to show you both. For the first one, we're going to use 3.4. We're going to type in 3.4. In the second one, I'm going to show you how to just leave it in terms of pi, and I'm going to show you both. So let's go back to this first example. We have our cylinder. We start with our formula, 2b plus pH, and my base is a circle, so I'm going to use pi r squared. The perimeter is the outside of the base, the perimeter of the base, and so you see my circle, which is the circumference, 2 pi r times h. So I'm just breaking it down for you again. I haven't put any values in. I'm just breaking it down so you can see the formula. We've done triangles and we've done rectangular prisms, but now we have cylinders, which involves circles. 2 times 3.14 times the radius squared, so 4 squared, plus 2 times 3.14 times the radius, and then the height of the prism. Remember, if I took the cylinder and I stood it up on its base, it would be 10.7. There are all of my values, and now I'm going to use my calculator to type in 2 times 3.14 times 4 squared. And that's 100.48. Plus, I'm going to type all this in, 2 times 3.14 times 4 times 10.7, 268.784. And then I add those together, and I'm going to round to my nearest tenth. So 369.3 centimeters squared. Again, it's surface area, so I need to make sure I have my units squared. I just rounded to the nearest tenth at the end because if you round too quick, some of your digits would get cut off. But we'll probably mostly be rounding to the tenths or the hundredths. Now this next example of this cylinder has a diameter of 16. Diameter means it goes all the way across, and a height of 16. That doesn't really look like it's the same, but it's supposed to be. So in this one, we're going to leave pi in our problem. I'm just going to show you what this looks like because you could possibly see it in your textbook or on problems. Our formula, surface area equals 2 times the base area plus the perimeter of the base times the height. And for this one, our base is a circle, so it's pi r squared, pi. And then here, the diameter is 16, so the radius is 8. Now, do you see how I just left pi in? I didn't write 3.4, I just left it as pi. Then the perimeter of the base, which is the circumference. So 2 pi, and then r is 8, because remember the diameter is 16, and so the radius is half the diameter, times the height of the prism, which is 16. You're just going to kind of leave pi alone. I'm going to show you what that would look like. When you square this, you get 64. 8 squared is 64 times 2 is 128 pi. You just leave it. It's kind of like a variable at this point. We just kind of leave it. And then over here, we're going to multiply all of that. 2 times 8 times 16. Whoops. I typed in 46. 256. So 256 pi. Notice I brought my pi down. I multiplied all my values. I left my pi there. Then I can add these kind of like terms. And I'm going to get 384 pi feet squared. 384 pi. And really that means multiplying. So if you wanted to actually multiply it out times pi, you would use the pi key on your calculator. There is a pi button. I'll show you in class. And that is 1,206 and 3,700 feet squared if you want to round. But sometimes you'll just want to leave it in terms of pi, and whenever it says what is it in terms of pi, that means you're going to have the pi symbol in your answer, and that's what it's going to look like. All right, let's turn it over in the back and see these examples on the back. Oh, okay, find the lateral area. Now this is what a net looks like. This is a net of a cylinder. It's a flattened out, like the pieces. A cylinder, the tops and bottoms are circles, and then the middle is actually a rectangle. If you were to take any kind of cylinder and cut it in half and roll it out, it would actually be a rectangle. And we only want the lateral area, so hopefully you remember lateral area is just this middle. I'm going to shade it. This is the lateral area. It does not include the bases. So it's just the perimeter of the base times the height. Let me see if I can fix my computer a little bit. The perimeter is 2 pi r times the height. 2 times 3.14 times the radius. Oh, I didn't give it to you. Sorry. You're like, what? The radius of this is a diameter of 10 and a height of 20. I'm sorry. Diameter of 10 and a height of 20. If the diameter is 10, that means the radius is 5. And then the height of the prism is 20. So you would actually type in your calculator 2 times 3.14 times 5 times 20, and it is 628 units squared. 628 units squared. If you used the pi button instead, you'd have a decimal, or 2 pi 5 times 20. And so that would be 5 times 20 is 100 times 2. That would be 200 pi if you wanted to leave it in terms of pi. Just the lateral area, though. Remember, this is just the lateral area. Example 4 says find the lateral area and surface area of a cylinder with a diameter of 2 and a height of 7. Now, if you see diameter, then we know that we have to divide it in half to get the radius. And there's no picture, so we're going to just use our formula. And you're going to get used to using that formula. Now again, this is a cylinder, so my base is a circle. Pi times radius squared, pi r squared, plus the perimeter, which is the circumference, 2 pi times the radius times the height of a prism, which is 7. You can leave it in terms of pi, so 2 times 1 squared is 1, so this would be 2 pi. 2 times 1 times 7 is 14 pi, and my surface area would be 16 pi. I added 2 plus 14 to get 16. Feet squared. That would be my surface area. Now, if you wanted to actually multiply that out, then you would multiply 16 times pi, and it's also 50.24 if you wanted to multiply it out. Either way, I'm fine with. Now, lateral area is just the perimeter times the height. It's just that middle part of the cylinder. And I already have it. It's 14 pi, or I would multiply 14 times pi, and it comes out to be 43.98 if you use the pi symbol, feet squared. And that is just the lateral area. Okay, so surface area, lateral area of a cylinder. Now, last one. Find the amount of paper needed to make a label for a soup can. If the can is 4 inches high, that would be the height, and 2.5 inches in diameter. So if it's 2.5 inches in diameter, it's 1.25 in radius, because I just divide that by 2. Let me just check the time. Okay. The label, let's talk about where the label goes. If you have a soup can, here is your label. The label goes around the middle, which is the lateral area. The label only goes around the middle, which is the lateral area. So we only need the lateral area, the perimeter times the height. The perimeter is the circumference, 2 pi r, times the height of the prism. The radius is 1.25, and the height of the prism is 4. I'm going to use 3.14 for pi. So 2 times 3.14 times 1.25 times 4. And my lateral area is 31.4, what is this, inches squared. That means we need 31.4 inches squared of paper for the label. That's really what that means. If you ever have a question that asks you how much paper is needed for a label, then it would be a lateral area question. If they asked you how much aluminum is needed to make a can, like how much aluminum is needed to make a can of soup or can of vegetables, then that would be a total surface area problem, because aluminum goes around the entire can. All right, so we will practice more, and this is a little bit about surface area of cylinders.